Hey everyone, this is Daniel,
And I'm Jun,
and we are
Korean.
American.
Hey Daniel,
Hey June.
it's been a while since we recorded.
It has been about every 2 weeks now, it seems.
Yeah, and I know that you've been to Japan.
Japan. Was I supposed to say Japan?
I was expecting that a little bit, but
sorry.
it's okay.
Yeah. It was our kids' spring break
Mhm.
this past week. Actually, still this week too. It's the last day,
Yeah.
and so we decided to go to Japan
Mhm.
for the first time since moving here,
hmm
which you might find surprising, right? Because Koreans go to Japan so frequently.
Yeah.
But we haven't been able to go yet.
Mm.
So finally went there. We spent 2 days in Kyoto
Kyoto.
and 2 days in Osaka.
So you flew into Osaka. And
We
then
flew into Osaka, yes.
and then you went right to Kyoto, and then
went all the way to Kyoto, yeah.
why did you do it the other way around? Or yeah, never mind.
At some point, we're going to have to go from the airport.
I just realized. And you brought me the famous
Yeah.
Tokyo banana,
So just returning the favor.
even though you haven't been to Tokyo.
Returning the favor because last time when you came back from Japan,
Yeah,
you brought this for the team.
yeah.
And that's when I first heard you say Koreans have like a particular treat or snack they bring back
Mhm.
depending on where they go.
Yeah.
From Tokyo or from Japan, it's this Tokyo banana snack.
Yeah, I wouldn't have brought back a Tokyo banana if everyone was Korean, because I think that's a bit too cliche.
Because they've already tried it before.
Yeah. But I was very sure that you guys haven't tried it.
And I hadn't. Yeah.
So I brought back the Tokyo banana.
Mm.
I remember the first time having this, and I think it was like, I don't know, like in my early 20s.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's been around a while.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
It was very shocking to me, like
Yeah.
how soft it is, the texture, and like the cream inside. I don't know why it sounds kind of sexual. Anyways, and most of all, like the packaging and how, like, I don't know, there's certain aspects of Japanese packaging that it just works the way that you would imagine
It's
it
supposed
to.
to. Yeah.
It's very and even like a lot of Korean snacks do that these days, but it like all these the bread things, right? They have like an individual, I guess, like plastic plate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That part was very surprising to me as well. Back then, it was like 20 years ago.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm surprised the go-to treat to bring back or gift snack to bring back from Japan hasn't changed in this long.
Yeah, I guess so. Or maybe I'm off the trend now. Why did you decide Japan this time?
We've been wanting to go to Japan for a while,
Mhm.
and then my wife and I have been to Tokyo before. I've been there once for work as well. So this was my third trip to Japan. And then actually it was both a great time to travel and a bad time to travel. This was, I think, the peak travel season in Japan.
Oh,
This is when Japan has like the week off or whatever.
was that like the Golden Week or whatever?
Something like that. Yeah. So it was crazy crowded. But also it's peak because it was supposed to be peak cherry blossom season. So we wanted to see the cherry blossoms in Kyoto. It's supposed to be beautiful. We were off by a week and we couldn't control that. But yeah, so I think that's why we decided.
You know, the interesting thing about cherry blossom, I guess, festivals, they have a lot of them in Korea too.
Yeah.
Is that they're mostly right now supposed to be cherry blossom season. And so all of the festivals were scheduled like around this week.
Yeah.
And
There's still no cherry blossoms
there are no
to be
cherry
seen.
blossoms, yeah. So I saw like, I guess, posts on the festival area saying like, oh, just one.
Yeah.
There are no cherry blossoms.
It's raining right now and it got cold all of a sudden. So I think
Yeah.
it's another week. And I think this coming weekend is supposed to be peak.
Mhm.
Blossoms are just starting to bud, I think.
Yeah. It's also very favorable for Koreans to travel to Japan right now because of the currency rate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How low was it? Was it like around 900won?
I still convert everything through dollars.
Oh,
It was about 150 yen per dollar.
150. What's the average usually?
I think it goes anywhere from 100 to 150. So again, compared to 100, right, this is 50%.
Yeah,
Everything's 50% cheaper. So still quite favorable, I think. Yeah.
But I think Japan's also very generous in their tax returns for tourists.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like discount in currency rate and another discount for
No taxes. Yeah. But yeah, true to what I've heard, there were a lot of Koreans. Yeah, I heard Korean all over while I was in Japan. Yeah. So
how did you feel meeting fellow Koreans in a foreign country?
That's really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously, so June, today I wanted to run through some of my observations, and you can comment and give me some of yours as well and your take on them. But one of the first ones was that there are a lot more foreigners in Japan. Like it's just, obviously we were in a tourist area during a tourist season. But yeah, there were just so many more foreigners. I'd say almost 10 times as much as I see in Korea. And so, yeah, I heard my fair share of Koreans, but also my fair share of Americans, or at least people speaking with an American English accent. And yeah, I thought I would feel really, what's the right word? A lot of affinity for the Americans. But I actually found myself more, I think, feeling, I don't know, in the same boat as I think the Korean travelers. So I don't know what that says about me. Maybe it's just because I flew from here, or I'm so used to hearing Korean day to day more than English. But yeah, for example, at one point we were doing it was like a ninja and samurai experience for our kids. And, this American family next to us heard us speaking English with our kids. And so they just started talking to me like, oh, hey, where are you from? Oh, you're Korean. Oh, my best friend's Korean, right? I'm from Florida, like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And again, as an American, June, this is what I would do. Like, that's how I am, right? But I guess after living in Korea for 2.5 years, I was really taken aback. I was like, oh, okay, why are you talking to me? Like,
that's a typical Korean mindset, right? Like,
we're never gonna see each other again. Like, what's the point, right? And it was really weird because I felt like, oh, I should be more engaged and interested, because this is exactly how I was. I'm a very I kind of outgoing, like to make small talk with other people while traveling. Yeah. But I was really just trying to be polite and not continuing the conversation any more than it needed to go.
So you're saying in terms of seeing other Koreans in a foreign country, you felt more affinity towards them than
the Americans. Yeah.
Than the Americans. That's good.
I really did. I think it's I was even surprised myself.
Yeah. Because I think I told you in some other episodes that a part of me when I meet fellow Koreans in a foreign state, a part of me, I have to admit, is I came all the way to this foreign country to experience all the foreignness, and now I see a lot of Koreans again.
You feel kind of basic, right? Like a basic Korean.
I don't know if that's the psychology behind that. I don't know. Sometimes I feel I don't know why, but I feel like I'm responsible for how they're behaving as well.
Oh, I see.
I don't know why that's a weird thing.
Yeah.
Especially when when I feel that they're misbehaving. I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Yeah. Right.
That's interesting. I think I do feel similarly when I see, let's say, Americans behaving in ways that I don't think are, let's say, appropriate. But I think I can, slide as non-American pretty easily. So I can pretend to not have any affinity for them. So I'm not American, but I am. But I guess on the surface, people might not know that. And so, yeah.
I guess it's also because when you're traveling to a foreign country, it's number one, you want to experience that environment, and number two, you want to escape from what you already was experiencing.
I get it.
And then by meeting other Koreans, you're immediately brought back to the Korean environment a little bit.
Yeah, it's less of an escape.
Yeah, and I'm trying to rethink why I think that way. But anyways,
I think the reason why I like hearing, let's say, and even though I say I feel more affinity for Koreans than Americans, I still feel a lot of affinity when I meet Americans abroad too. I think it's more we're in this together. If I'm struggling with the language, you'll understand what I'm struggling with. Maybe you can help interpret or give me your tips or help me navigate how to be here. Right. So that happened once too as well. It's oh, where did you get that? And this was in Universal Studios where we went in Osaka. And I was asking the other American people I saw there for tips and advice and, oh, where'd you get that thing? Or how's the line for this when you went? And I would, have never been able to get that information otherwise.
I see.
So I think I just like having that. It's almost like a support network. I can communicate with them and I can, share that with them. So, yeah.
Oh, speaking of Universal Studios,
Yeah.
is that the one that has the Mario Land thing?
Yeah, Super Nintendo World,
Yeah.
and then Harry Potter World, I think, are the main attractions. And there's a Minions area, and really hilariously, there's like a Water World area. It's like some old Kevin Costner movie.
Oh, okay.
And there's a Jurassic Park area, and I think that's it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How was it? I was very curious about the Super Mario Land.
It was surreal. It was amazing. It was awesome, right? Like Super Nintendo World in Japan, right? This thing's gonna be epic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like nothing I could imagine, or I didn't have many expectations, but it blew whatever I had away.
Really?
It was surreal. It really felt like you were in the video game, and like everywhere there were like, you know, the pipes and like the Koopas moving around and the coins and like the turtles, and it was nuts. Yeah, it was so epic. The thing that wasn't epic, again, we traveled during like peak season. June, it was so crowded.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It was not just Universal Studios, but like navigating these tiny like walkways through Kyoto or whatever. There were so many people. And,
I feel a lot of respect for you to travel to Japan with 4 other kids, including
young ones.
Yeah.
1.5-year-old,
2-year-old. Yeah.
and then our second youngest is 4.5. I should have caveated everything I'm saying is from the perspective of a family of 6 with 4 kids, including one really young one. We had a double stroller in tow.
Oh, wow.
And it was like double wide, not like front to back like some.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of entryways we literally couldn't fit the stroller through.
Oh, no.
So we had to like have the kids come off, fold it up, go through and unfold it. And we were just like, why did we even bring this?
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and even things in the US are not made for, I guess, families of 6, but Japan for sure, things are not made for this. Like frequently we had to split up. Okay, some of us take the elevator because we can't all fit. The rest of us take the escalator. And, you know, I will say dining was better than I expected because a lot of these restaurants have these back rooms where you sit down or, you know, it's kind of a, I guess, traditional Asian style seating.
Oh, I see.
And it's like the back room. It's like you can close the doors to have some privacy. And yeah, we got to sit at that twice. We ate like, you know, 2 of our 8 meals or whatever at those. Those were quite convenient because we were expecting to have to divide up, you know, 4-2 or 3-3, which we did have to do a few times. But those bigger rooms were awesome.
What was your favorite meal during your trip?
I don't remember. Again, this trip was mostly around our kids, right? And I think most of the time we travel is around, okay, what's going to be kid friendly? What are the kids going to enjoy? That said, yeah, I think my favorite meal, I forget what it was called. It was like we had a sashimi plate, but then they brought the rice later. And it was like a hot broth, and there was a bunch of stuff you could put in, like shredded chicken and spring onions and other things. But anyway, you pour broth over it anyway, so it kind of gets diluted away.
Oh, you pour the broth over the rice.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So again, as a name, I just forget what it was.
Who does, right?
But that was probably our nicest meal. And, you know, thankfully, at least for one meal, we got to eat some sashimi in Japan.
Yeah.
But I think the more memorable meal was our first night we went to a mall. Food court and
in Kyoto,
in Kyoto, I believe, Aeon Mall it was called. And yeah, you know, out of the 10 stores there, probably at least half of them had a kids menu.
Oh, nice.
And June, these kids menus were amazing.
Really?
Like not only the quality of food, but the price. It's literally like $4.
Oh.
And my kids were like, this is the best ramen ever.
Really?
Like they wanted like multiple servings of it, which is not the norm. And they ate so much ramen, they couldn't even eat the fried rice that it came with. And I, you know, this is a bad habit of mine, but I always try to finish the kids' leftovers. I'm not kidding. This fried rice was amazing. It was like some of the best fried rice I've had.
Really?
And they also had like small chicken karage with it. Like this thing was so good.
Yeah.
It was $4.
Yeah.
So cheap.
Speaking of prices, right?
Yeah.
Even not even for the currency rate, but I think in general, the living cost of Korea went so high over the past few decades.
Yeah.
Now Japan like feels very affordable, and even cheaper than Seoul, right?
Yeah,
which is
I
crazy.
agree with that. It's crazy.
Because if I think about it, if I remember when I was little and traveling to Japan, like let's say in the 90s, it felt like everything just had another zero there.
It's like
Meaning,
that
like,
much more expensive.
yeah,
10 times more.
10 times more. And because like they have like the 100 yen coins, right?
Yes, yeah.
And it looks very similar to
Peg one?
the peg one. And it felt like it almost looks the same, but the value of it is so different, right? That's what I felt like.
Yeah.
And I always imagined, how could you live in Japan?
Yeah.
Because like this little soda can in the vending machine, it's like 5 times more expensive in Korea. Now I visit Japan, they're the same.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
They're the same for the 20 years. And in Korea, living costs like probably 10x.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's crazy to think. Yeah.
Specifically, I had another bullet here. The beef prices in Japan are so much cheaper than Korea.
Yeah, I don't know what's that about.
Yeah.
Like produce, groceries are especially very expensive in Korea.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what is specifically cheaper in Korea now.
Yeah. Okay, in Korea, how much more expensive would you say like beef is than pork?
Depends on which beef it is, because I think there's a very striking price difference between Korean beef, like Hanu, versus imported beef. But in general, if you want to compare it with the Korean beef, yes, I would say three to four times.
3 to 4 times, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the beef prices in Japan were cheaper than pork prices here. Yeah. So, I mean, it was just like, I haven't lived in America for so long, and I don't calculate beef prices in America by the gram. So it's hard for me to make this comparison. But at least compared to Korea, yeah, beef in Japan was so cheap. So we ate beef so much. Yeah, it was just almost felt like we had to because it was so affordable. Yeah.
Beef in Japan, they're also, I feel like they're slightly different in their preferences. Where beef in Japan, they enjoy a lot of fat in it. Whereas in Korea, I think more specifically in the States, they like more lean meat. But like on the other extreme, there's Japan, where you see their raw beef in the supermarket. Yeah, they almost look white.
Yeah, the marbling.
Yeah. They're like too fatty almost. Yeah. But they're really good. Also, when I go to Japan, what I really like to do is go to the convenience stores. Because convenience stores are
Lawson's,
really good. Lawson's, 7-Elevens, Family Marts. Yeah. They're all really good.
I guess I was expecting more, right? Like when you go to Hawaii and you go to the local supermarkets, they have like fresh poke and like sashimi and sushi and everything. It's like truly insane.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say the Japan convenience stores to me felt a lot like Korean pyeonjams. It wasn't much of a difference, at least to me.
They are exactly like Korean pyeonjams.
Which are awesome. But
But I think pyeonjams are slightly different from supermarkets. You would have wanted to go to an actual supermarket in Japan, which they would have like all those.
We didn't actually go into a supermarket. Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. So all of that is to say.
That was a long intro.
I guess.
Or was it an intro? I don't know.
We started talking about some topics. We covered the food court, the kids' meals, beef prices, the amount of tourists compared to Korea.
Yeah. Not only tourists per se, but people, like foreign people living in the country.
Yes, I'm sure that's much higher.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of foreign people or like Western people choose to live in Japan just for fun.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people do that for Korea.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I see a lot of foreign people in Japan more than in Korea. And also the language that they speak. I don't know why, for some reason. If you see the foreign people in Japan, they all speak fluent Japanese for some reason, right? And compared to that, if you see foreign people in Korea, you don't expect them to speak Korean, right? Which is very interesting.
I think it's what we were talking about before in one of our previous episodes, where foreigners living in Korea, they're not here for the long term. They're here for 3-4 years and fully planning to move back to the States at some point. Whereas foreigners in Japan, like you said, I think they're just living there. Like they are very happy just living there indefinitely. And so of course you have to like learn the language, or maybe you even know it before moving there. So I'd agree with that. All right. Should I run through some of my list?
Sure, let's go.
All right, the first one I noticed, and immediately after getting off the airport, people queue up for everything. But things are kind of slow.
Like in what way? Like everything?
I guess for me, I was like in line at the currency exchange thing, and oh my gosh, this thing was moving so slow. And even when I got up there, right, like it was just everything was slower than I expected. Like they were entering in the calculator, showing it to me, you know, confirming, reconfirming, counting the money, recounting the money, like making sure everything was okay and proper. And, you know, what could have taken a minute took like 5 minutes, right?
I see.
And I think in Korea, right, we haven't mentioned this term before either on this pod, which I'm surprised by, but the pali pali culture, like everything has to be fast, efficient, as, you know, as quick as possible. I just don't think that exists in Japan, at least from my sense. Yeah, it's very orderly, very structured, but also much more methodical, let's say, and like almost proper. Whereas in Korea, I just feel like people are trying to get through things as fast as possible.
Yeah. Having experience working for a Korean company that's very, or like a Japanese company that has sort of like their semi-headquarters in Korea.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of chance to actually work closely with Japanese colleagues. I can definitely feel that. Like Korean people are so
Pali pali.
답답해. Like what's taking so long?
Have you seen the movie Zootopia?
Zootopia, yes, I have.
The sloth scene?
Yeah. They're faster than that.
No, I know.
The sloth scene I would compare it to something in the States. That scene was specifically in the DMZ. DMV, yeah.
Which is kind of like the DMZ.
But I respect the slowness of Japan more than the slowness in
the States.
Because I feel like the end result is very, very
higher quality,
immaculately done.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but but you agree though. Japanese culture in general feels a little slower than Korea.
It is interesting because it never came to mind, right? But if I think about it, it might be true. I never thought it was very significantly slower. But I think in theory it might be true.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was number one.
And everyone queues up for everything, right? Yeah. But I think over the years, Korea became a lot like that too.
Yeah.
Like even when I was growing up, it was like mayhem. Like even for the buses, no one queued up, and it was just like. When you go to Japan, I was also very surprised that people are queuing up for everything.
Yeah.
But now if you go to subways, people queue up like in bus stations and everything.
Yeah, they do.
But I think they're world class in queuing up. Yeah, Japan.
I was just like so impressed with how, again, orderly their queuing was, and I guess how conscientious they were of other people in the queue.
Yeah.
Right? They were like clearly allowing space, let's say, for people to walk through and things like that.
Yeah. This is what I heard. Like one of the major aspects of what's underlying in Japanese cultural norms is to not be a burden to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the number one things that parents teach to their kids, to not be a burden to other people.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. The second one, I guess, this was on the train. And by the way, we rode a Hello Kitty train, which my wife planned.
Yeah.
With our daughter's friend's mom, who's Japanese or lived in Japan, helped us. Anyway, we didn't go in, so I don't know if I was just seeing things or what, but I saw like what looked like a Walmart, just like a gigantic shopping center, but it looked like a single Daiso store.
Really?
And like for me, I'm used to Daiso being like a very small, like almost like a smaller store, right? You can't have a full large Daiso store. But this one was just like a Daiso like factory outlet, just like multiple seconds of like this train going by this large Daiso store. Anyway, I really wanted to go in, but it just got me thinking, like realizing that a lot of these like Daiso or Muji or these Japanese stores, let's say outside of Japan, they're just going to be like the smaller outlet, almost like, let's say, like a novelty. But in Japan, they're probably more of like the major shopping destinations for things. And so I've always just seen like the exported version of these stores and maybe not the main ones. So yeah.
I always wonder if the Japanese Daiso, like the relationship between the Japanese Daiso and a Korean Daiso, because their logos are different.
Oh, okay.
But the sound's the same.
Similar stuff too.
Yeah. So I was always curious, maybe.
I mean, this Daiso, literally, I remember at the end, it had like a gardening section. It's like, that's a Home Depot or whatever, like a Walmart. It was humongous.
So you're saying it was actually a Daiso or like a Daiso type place?
It literally said Daiso.
Oh, really?
I don't know if, again, I was surprised. That's why I noted it. It's like, is this really a gigantic, like, Walmart, Costco type Daiso store?
Interesting.
So again, this might be off. So
I think it reflects Japanese economy, though.
Yeah.
Right? People like average people in Japan are, compared to how wealthy the country is,
yeah,
their average income is not that high. So everyone has to save and
might be shopping. Oh, is Daiso known to be like
cheap.
a saving store?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh.
See, I don't even know these things. Okay, next observation. Again, some of the smallest elevators I've ever seen. Yeah.
This is what weirdly one of the things that I really like about Japan.
Yeah.
I think I've covered this, mentioned this in our previous episodes, but everything's like slightly smaller than Korea.
Yeah.
The same feeling where everything's slightly bigger in the US, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not a tall person. So when I go to Japan, I feel like I'm like in the right space now. Finally, everything's slightly smaller, the scale. That's what I like about Japan though. But the elevators, they're like almost for 3 people max.
Yes, exactly. When we got our double stroller in, which a lot of times it like just barely fit. Like we're wiggling this thing through.
Yeah.
We're completely blocking, so there's no way to get in. So we would have to have our kids enter first, stand against the sides, and like we'd wiggle our stroller in and like suck in, and we could like maybe barely fit, but sometimes we couldn't even fit.
Oh my god.
But yeah, definitely the smallest elevators I've ever seen.
Do you have to take the stairs sometimes?
Yeah, or escalator.
Oh no. Also, speaking of scales, the most striking thing, or like the most noticeable thing in Japan, are the glass cups that they serve in restaurants. They're like this tiny.
They're tiny. Like shot glasses.
Yeah,
like drinking
almost,
water.
yeah.
I do remember too, one walk, we were walking through like a park near our hotel. Yeah, the bridge overhead, it was 1.8 meters high, right? So like, again, I'm not tall either.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh wow, like if I'm any taller, I'd be having to duck under this entire bridge area. It's crazy. I never felt, let's say, short in America for Asian Americans. I always felt very average. In Korea, I feel like I'm a little shorter than your average Korean, which is surprising to me, right? Because I never felt this way in America. You know, compared to your average American, of course, I'm below average. But at least for Asian Americans, I always felt very average, maybe even slightly above average.
Are you saying Korean Americans are shorter than Koreans?
I believe so. Yeah.
Why is that so?
I have no idea.
Because if there's anything that's determining the factor of height, it's like
nutrition. Yeah.
You're saying
Koreans... I'm saying I was surprised, and I don't know. I haven't done research to see what the actual height is. Just when I'm on the subway, I'm like, oh, like I definitely feel maybe average, but if anything, slightly below rather than slightly above.
Well, maybe it's because you're comparing to Asian Americans in general, right? Because you don't know the race of that other person. Yeah. I think Koreans are on the higher end for in general in their heights compared to other East Asian countries. Japan especially. I don't know about China.
Yeah, this is where I was going.
Yeah,
I think in Japan, I was back to feeling okay. I'm above average height here.
Yeah,
not by a lot. But I was like, okay, I feel slightly above average height for, again, like a male my age in Japan. So yeah, that was just something I didn't expect. Jude, I think you have to understand, for me, we'll get to this more later, but I feel a lot of affinity for Asian Americans, right? And for me, like, we're all in one bucket together. Most of my friends growing up, I'd say, were Chinese American. Of course, Korean Americans too. And I think, like, in my whole life growing up, I maybe met like 2 or 3 Japanese people. Sorry, this was before moving to California. This was growing up in Maryland.
Yeah.
But yeah, it always felt like we were just in one bucket together. Whereas, yeah, obviously, like, having moved to Korea and then visiting Japan, it was very clear to me, okay, who was Japanese, who was Korean, like now more so. So I'm starting to notice, again, some differences overall between the different, let's say, East Asian cultures. Yeah. Okay. I guess to this point, we'll just knock this out quick. But I was shocked that Korean was one of the official, like, languages on the signs. To me, it just shows how many tourists go there. But again, most of the signs had Japanese, English, Chinese, and then Korean. Korean was like the third language.
Yeah.
For me, again, it's like, I would never have thought Korea was maybe a big enough or, yeah, it Chinese and English make sense. I was surprised that I saw Korean everywhere as well. Yeah.
Which statistically only makes sense because I know for a fact that I shouldn't say fact, but I think I know that the number one nationality for both countries in Korea and Japan are Korean Japan.
Really?
Yeah.
For tourists.
Yeah.
Going
for tourists,
back.
yeah.
Oh. It's not China. Just the sheer volume of Chinese.
I heard that it was Korean.
Oh wow. Okay.
But I have to fact check this. This is why I shouldn't say I know for a fact.
But anyway, yeah. So that doesn't surprise you though that Korean would be
doesn't.
translated.
Yeah, it
everywhere.
almost should be statistically number one Korean and then English.
Again, I would never have expected this. Yeah.
In general, everywhere, I feel like it's more English friendly in Japan than in Korea, right? Everything, a lot of things are written in English.
In my previous 2 times in Tokyo, 100%, I was shocked by how English friendly things were. Every hotel person could speak English. The taxi driver spoke English. This time, I don't know if it's because I was in Kyoto and Osaka, which is not maybe as international as Tokyo. But yeah, I was frustrated many times this trip, like having the language barrier and not understanding how to communicate. Yeah. So compared to Korea, though, it's hard for me to compare because, again, I do have some baseline understanding of Korean. But yeah, I would agree. It did feel better than Korea for English speakers.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just a random thing, but I think you have a more accurate way of pronouncing Kyoto than your average American. You know how Americans say like Kyoto?
Kyoto, yeah. Osaka, yeah.
Kyoto.
Okay. Maybe it's the Korean, because I know how it's spelled in Korean. Maybe that's why.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I have a more Korean way of pronouncing it, which is more accurate to the Japanese way of pronouncing it.
I think so.
Okay, this one I'm really interested to see your take. Japan, at least, Kyoto and Osaka, it felt flatter than Korea. Both the terrain and there were fewer skyscrapers.
Interesting. Maybe I think there are several factors. Number one, I think, are you comparing it to Osaka?
Osaka and Kyoto both, yeah, compared to Korea.
Kyoto definitely would be flatter. I think it's more of the historical cities in Japan, so they might have city regulations for skyscrapers. But if you think about it, Tokyo, I don't think Tokyo is more flatter than Seoul per se.
Maybe how about terrain wise, not skyscraper wise?
Terrain, just flatter. Are you trying to get into like seismic regulations and stuff?
No, I was noting because in Korea, I'm always surprised by how mountainous it is everywhere. Like anytime you're standing anywhere, you look around.
The landscape. Just the landscape.
Yeah, you can't see very far. You either run into buildings or you run into mountains. But in Japan, at least when again in Kyoto and Osaka, I was frequently just looking around. We weren't very high. We were on like the 3rd floor, let's say. Wow, you can see everything for miles and miles and miles. Like it felt really flat compared to Korea, which again, is just something more unique to Korea. But I wondered if you noticed this at all. Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Anyway, yeah.
Maybe it is. I've never researched Kyoto or
terrain.
Terrain. But now that you say it, I remember going to one of like the, what do you call them? Like the 전망대, like viewing points from one of the skyscrapers in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And looking down into the entire cityscape of Tokyo. And now that you say it, I remember it being very flat.
You could see pretty far, right?
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's true. Interesting. I don't know about skyscrapers.
I suspect Tokyo has its good fair share of skyscrapers,
Maybe,
but
yeah.
Even the ones that I saw in Osaka, they just didn't feel as tall, to be honest. Yeah.
Maybe it's also because it's an older city than compared to Seoul.
Yeah. That's a good reason. Yeah. I mean, we've gotten into this before too, but Koreans are exceptional at building tall out of necessity because there's so little like flat livable space here. So I suspect these could be related. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Crowds, affordable prices, kids menu, fried rice. We already okay. Yeah. A lot of things that I just saw for the first time. The gacha machines, like you put in coins and you turn. There were entire stores just full of these, right? Yeah. Like I'm used to maybe in the States or Korea, like there's 2 or 3 in front of the convenience store. They're here and there. they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, and these stores have like probably literally hundreds of these gacha machines like side by side.
Yeah.
Never seen this before.
And they're all so creative, right? The things you really want to get them.
They were pretty cool. Yeah, our kids definitely could have spent a lot of money there. Yeah.
There was a phase in my life where I had to stop by every gacha machine
to get one.
if I found one in Seoul or Japan.
Yeah.
I was always curious, by the way, about the name gacha.
Yeah.
Do you think it came from like gotcha in English?
No, it couldn't.
It isn't?
It has to be a Japanese origin.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
But anyway, like gotchas, I guess I didn't realize. Okay, so I had similar revelations in Japan as I did when I was watching the opening ceremony when the Olympics were in London. Because I was like, that's British? That's British? I had no idea these things were of British origin because I thought they were maybe American or I just didn't think, right? In Japan, this was one of those things I was like, oh, yeah, of course. That's like a Japanese. They must have invented these gacha machines, right?
They must
have. Yeah. I mean, these things were everywhere. So, yeah, I had a lot of those moments, and this was one of them. So, not only gachas, there was the gacha, the arcade rooms were just, again, next level.
Yeah.
And there was an entire store, a like massive store dedicated to the crane machines.
Oh, yes, yes.
And in general, I think vending machines in general, like I'd say there's a vending machine culture in Japan. And they must be number one, right?
They must
vending
be.
Machine culture.
Do you know that I think Japan's the only country that have a subscription plan for vending machines?
No, what? How does that work?
I don't know. Like you go to a certain brand of vending machine, you can get like
you pay for the access to that vending machine brand. But yeah, their vending machine culture was next level.
I also want to mention that there's a casino or what do you call them? Pachinko machine culture in Japan. Yeah.
What is pachinko? Because again, my only understanding of the word pachinko is that it's the title of some, book that some Korean American author wrote about Koreans living in Japan, I believe. And then it became, Netflix. Or sorry, it became what is the Apple TV. Like, anyway, it's I really want to read the book and watch the drama. But I don't know what pachinko means, and I saw it everywhere in Japan as well. So I wanted to ask you too.
So I don't know what the origin of the name is, but as far as I know, pachinko machines are sort of like the equivalent of the slot machines you see in casinos in the US, but they're very unique in that I don't know how to play it, but they give out like these metal marbles. And then like I don't know, I've only observed them playing it. I don't know how they work. You just you scrape up the metal marbles and you put it back in the machine and something happens and you get more of them and then you do it again.
Is it some sort of gambling thing though?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I would believe that eventually they would exchange it with money.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it works.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're everywhere, right?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
I noticed. I was like, oh, pachinko. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Because again, I didn't know what it was. I just know it's the title of a famous book by a Korean American author.
Yeah.
All right. We rode the train everywhere. So
subway or train?
I think train. JR? Is that the subway?
JR. They have subways and train railways as well.
I think it was a train.
Yeah.
But this place only took coins. And they have these buttons where like before we found out our two youngest we didn't have to pay for.
Yeah.
They just have these buttons for like one adult, two adults.
Yeah.
One child, two childs. Two adults, one child. Two adults, two child. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
One adult, two child. Right? So unless you have one of these combinations, you have to literally buy them separately.
Oh, interesting.
So at first we were like, are you serious? You have to buy two adults, two kids together and then two kids separately.
Yeah.
And yeah, these machines, I guess, it just felt very outdated. Like the technology, and this is what I wanted to get into more later too. My perception of Japan is like, super technologically advanced is my perception. But having gone there, it feels like it's stuck in like the 90s. Like the technology is just like 20 years old and hasn't progressed. And the infrastructure is outdated. And yeah, so anyway, I was just shocked we couldn't pay by card. And so it's much more of a cash operated society than I think Korea is.
I think Japan is still very technologically advanced, but not living up to their perception up until like the 90s, right?
Yeah.
I think it's very obviously tied to their economical situation. And also, I think Japan culturally has an inertia of trying to maintain things that there were. And I think in that sense, they sort of lost their, I guess, power engine of innovation a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's why I think there weren't a lot of innovations coming from Japan in the digital age with internet and apps and all that, right? Like, can you think of an app that came from Japan that's very successful globally? I don't know.
I thought they were like, again, on the bleeding edge of technology.
Yeah.
So
I think more towards hardware than software, I guess.
Like robotics and things like that. Yeah.
I think fundamentally there's something that goes against the nature of tech innovation in Japan. Like they want to maintain tradition. They want to be the same way.
But then how did they have like, whatever, the Sony, like they were bleeding edge for everything, right? Like
That's
media
true.
players, whatever, TVs, things like that. Yeah.
That's true. That's interesting.
I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe they're just more hardware oriented.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, not only this train ticket machine, but a lot of places were cash only. Yeah.
This part is so frustrating, but also I want to give credit to Japan because I think they've changed a lot during the past decade. Like back then, it was so frustrating because you couldn't use credit cards anywhere. You only have to bring cash everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think if you go to, I don't know, at least for Tokyo, if I go now, there are a lot of places that are accepting credit cards. But if you go to these little restaurants, right?
Yeah.
Which are supposed to be really good, and you have to go, and yeah, of course they're cash only. Yeah.
I will say, I liked paying in cash. I haven't paid in cash in so long, right? Being in Korea, it is a bit annoying at first. But these coins, right? They I think have 50, 100, and 500, right? Like a 500 yen coin is like a $3 coin in the US, right?
Yeah.
Coins are so much more convenient to manage and deal with than bills to me. And
Why so? They're heavy.
They are
make
heavier, but they're
sound.
smaller. For me, it's easier to manage, like paying with like 5 coins rather than like fumbling through bills and things like that.
Interesting.
I don't know. I like the fact that I could pay with a lot of things in coins. So yeah.
Wow. You're probably the only person that I met who
felt that way.
who number one feels like a lot of value in paying in cash, and also number two prefer coins over bills.
It's because in the US, right, coins only go up to quarters, like 25 cents. You can't pay with anything with just coins, right?
Wait, isn't there a 50-cent coin?
And it's hardly ever used. And there's also a dollar coin, but those are also hardly ever used, right? So it just goes with 25 cents.
Yeah.
But the Japanese coins go up to, like almost $1.
Yeah.
Right. And then like almost $3.50 to $4, right? And so you can pay with things, you can just manage things in coins. And yeah, I would pretty much just throw away the 10 yen coins, which is the equivalent of a dime here. Right. So
dime here.
dime in America. Yeah.
Peg one here.
Yeah. Like baegwons you can't do anything with a baegwon, right? You need 15 baegwons to buy a drink.
Yeah.
In Japan, you just give 100 yen, you get a drink, right? It's super convenient.
I think coins in Korea have very little use now.
No, same in America. That's what I mean. Like they're just a nuisance.
Yeah.
But in Japanese, because the denomination was high enough, it was to me actually very comfortable just using coins for a lot of things.
That's a very interesting observation. I think it's true. It's very convincing.
All right. So let's see. In one of our taxi cabs that we paid to shuttle us around, I saw a fully digital rear view mirror. Never seen this before.
On the outside or the inside?
Inside, like the taxi cab's rear view mirror, it was fully digitized.
Oh.
It wasn't a mirror. It was just the output of a camera that was in the back.
Oh.
And so, I don't know. I just had never seen it before.
I think I've seen some of them in Korea too.
It's much clearer than a mirror, right? Mirror has things in the way, right? Like, let's say it's foggy or like the light's off, right? It's hard to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, this picture was just like perfectly clear.
Yeah.
Just kind of a novelty. All right. One more and then we can end this section. There's this like frizz haircut.
Yes.
Is it famous?
It is famous.
Okay.
I think it's called the shaggy cut.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's just like men split it halfway.
Yeah.
And it's just like this really frizzy, almost perm, but a messy perm. But anyway, it's just it stands out.
Yeah.
But so many people have it that I noticed it. Yeah.
It was in trend in Korea some point during my college years.
Yeah.
Everyone did that.
Okay.
But Japan is famous for like they were like that for a very long time up until now.
Yeah.
But you know what I realized? Korean styling is in trend everywhere in Asia.
Koreans set the trend.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I see a lot of Japanese people now if I go to Japan doing the Korean style. And I also realized it in Taiwan too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So everyone looks Korean for some reason.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing for Japan because I don't understand the shaggy.
shag. Yeah.
It's so weird.
It does stand out.
Yeah.
But anyway, just like it stood out so much.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think the final thing was just, I did say final before, but this is related. I see a lot more, let's say, individualism in Japan than I do in Korea. People stand out when they dress, like the way they dress, what they do, right? I see crazy hairstyles, dreads to like frizz to like different colors and everything. And I don't think it's because of where I live. I just think in Korea, people don't want to stand out as much, and you can't be as individualistic with your, let's say, fashion sense or styling. So, yeah, it was refreshing to see, because I think that's a lot more like America. People dress and look however they want to, whatever makes them happy. Whereas in Korea, it feels like everyone dresses and styles themselves just to fit in. So, yeah.
I think I resonate with that a lot, and I feel the same way when I go to Japan. You see a lot of people that are very individualistically styled. But this is what I heard. Japan is very polarized in that way, where they can dress very individualistically, but in certain occasions, they would dress even strictly similarly to each other than in Korea.
I see.
For instance, businessmen. I don't know if you've seen businessmen and women in Japan. They dress exactly the same, like even more so in Korea.
Yeah, I see. It's like a uniform almost.
Like the same black,
yeah,
the same tie, the same type of shoes and all that, the same type of bag.
Yeah.
They look exactly the same, which is very weird to me. If you see like people in, let's say, Harajuku, and you see all these crazy people like dressed individualistically different.
In that area, yeah.
And then you see on the other end, you see like these businessmen, they wear exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so this is what I heard. Even when you see people in Japan wearing something that looks very unique, I heard they always follow a certain rule to that.
I see.
So they're never like over the top crazy. They always have like certain rules that they follow.
Yeah.
I don't know if the latter part is true, but at least when I observe them, there's like this striking difference where I can't imagine how they coexist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So it's more polarized, you're saying?
It's more polarized, but even for the same person, like they would dress very uniquely in certain occasions, but they're happy to wear exactly the same thing in certain others. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
There's rules about when you can dress crazy, let's say. Yeah.
At least that's how I interpret it.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, Jun, these were like the things that stood out for me as an American now having lived in Korea for 2.5 years, visiting Japan for the first time with his family. For you, I mean, is there anything that immediately stands out to you that I might have missed, as a Korean traveling to Japan? Is there anything that stands out to you? Or
let's see, I think this is one thing that I want to mention in terms of their culture.
Yeah.
I think Japan is much more acceptive of cutesy things.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to Korea.
Yeah.
And so there's I think there's a gradual difference from the US and then Korea and then Japan, right? I think US is more, they're like the opposite end of liking cutesy things. Like they don't like that very much.
Yeah.
Korea is more a little accepting of that. I think it's a lot of Japanese influence.
Yeah.
But Japan, it's like sometimes I feel like everything has like these cutesy characters on it.
Yeah.
Even like the government agencies, they have like cute characters, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how you felt about that.
I did notice, for example, at Universal Studios, even like the groups of all guys, like they would be like 5 or 6 guys together. They all had like the headbands on with like the figurines on top.
Yeah.
And you would not see any, hardly any men in the US wearing those things. Yeah. It'd feel maybe too feminine or something. Like you said, they're not as attuned to the cutesy stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, groups of guys traveling together, they're all wearing these like, Mario and Toad or Princess headbands or whatever, and it felt very normal. And so even though I did notice it, very quickly I became normalized to it. Yeah.
Also in terms of how, I think we've talked about this in some previous episode about how Korean, like people in the service industry, Korean compared to the US people in the US feels more natural and being themselves, whereas Korean people in the service industry, they feel very robotic. I think the very extreme of that is in Japan. Like, how'd you feel about that?
We did not notice that.
Yeah.
I think what I did notice is the voice in particular.
Yeah.
It's very like the very animated, almost like an anime sounding voice.
Yeah. Especially the females, right?
Especially the females, which would feel really out of place normally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like you go to Starbucks and the person greets you like a Barbie voice or whatever, right? So that I did notice for sure. Yeah.
It's always funny to me when like I talk to someone, let's say in a convenience store, and I say something that's totally like out of the blue because I'm Korean, like I'm a foreigner, and they're like, like they don't, like, it's like
very animated, right?
Yeah, it's like they encountered some kind of virus in their normal routine, and they don't know, like they don't know how to process this, like and then like they don't know what to do, and like they're trying to help me as much as they can, but like those kind of moments are very interesting to me.
Interesting, yeah. Before we transition, there was a situation in the Universal Studios park where we had paid for like an express pass or whatever. But anyway, like there was some confusion or the code wasn't scanning. And so it wasn't working. But June, it really was like an injustice. Like we had lined up, my kids were so excited, and then they just were talking back and forth. And like I said, going through all these rules, but they didn't let us into the line for over 30 minutes. And we just saw hundreds of people passing us in this express lane, right? And I'm not proud to admit this, but my first instinct was, we're being targeted because we're foreigners. And this whole idea maybe of like, they're being racist against us or prejudiced against us or treating us unfairly or unjustly because we're foreigners. I haven't felt that in so long. And even though I know as we are foreigners in Korea, again, we blend in, like we're not immediately targeted as foreigners. Whereas there, it was very obvious we couldn't communicate at all. Like we were talking in English. And it just felt, again, for better for worse, my initial reaction was immediately to jump to like, why are we being targeted? Why just us? Everyone else I'm seeing, they have the same code type thing. Like they're all being let through. No one's even stopping them. Why are they giving us such a hard time? And again, it was unfair at the end. Like it was their error.
Oh, really?
But waiting in line to get into the line for 30 minutes while they go back and forth, put you to one side, don't let you in. And like treat us and look at us like we're doing something wrong, which we weren't. I promise you, we were doing nothing wrong. Whenever you feel unfairly targeted, I think in the US, my initial reaction is almost always to jump to like, oh wow, racism. Like we're being targeted. Is there some racism involved? And to feel that again in Japan, it was just a reminder of how bad it feels. So helpless, so unjust, right? And so just like infuriating and frustrating. And it's just a reminder, like I haven't felt that in Korea for 2.5 years at all. And so to experience that again, it just felt very, again, very bad. I don't know if you ever feel like targeted or, maybe, they're racist against Koreans or whatever.
I don't think I have a personal experience, but I did hear that Japan is also very racist, deep down rooted in the society. And I guess that's why I think on the surface they can be more welcoming to foreigners on the surface more than they can in Korea because they're, I think, more international, right? But I think deep down I think they can be as racist as Koreans. I don't want to say more, but that's what I heard.
Anyway,
especially if you don't speak the language.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, it was just that was probably the low light of the trip for me. And it was a reminder of, I think, that feeling I've gotten so many times in the US that I just hadn't felt for a while. So
did they at least apologize after the 30 minutes?
We had bounced between like 5 different agents, and the final person, she was very helpful. She spoke pretty good English, and she said, "Our fault, not yours." I don't know if she ever said sorry.
Mm.
But again, this error, I think, and that experience was so bad. If we really wanted to like complain and get something as compensation, we probably would have been entitled. It was such a bad experience. I can't state how bad it was, overstate how bad it was. But at the same time, like at the end of the day, I was like, there's no point in pursuing this further. Like, it's in the past. Let's just move on. And so we didn't do anything like that. But they never said sorry, but they did ultimately say, our error, not yours. So, and, they did what they could in that moment. But anyway. All right. So next section, we're about an hour into this episode. So
there's a next section.
Well, I wanted to just get I wanted to contrast our general perceptions of Japan and see if there's anything interesting. Just as an American growing up, how you think of Japan, and as a Korean growing up, how you think about Japan. And I wanted to lead with this, which was something that came up in a previous conversation, but we didn't actually include in the podcast. When I think of cherry blossoms, we started this episode talking about cherry blossoms and cherry blossom season. I immediately associate cherry blossoms with Japan. Right? I think they're called sakuras. It's a Japanese word. And for me, growing up in DC, cherry blossoms were very closely associated with the tidal basin, which is when Japan gifted America with hundreds of these cherry blossom trees, right? And, kind of ironically, this was a kind of a peace thing anyway, I immediately associate sakuras and cherry blossom trees with Japan. And it came up, June, that you do not. And Koreans in general do not. No. So that was so shocking to me. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons, of course, it's very multifaceted. I think one of the reasons is because Japanese culture and Korean culture aren't that different compared to how different Japanese culture and American culture is. So there are a lot of blurred lines where you can call this distinctively only Japanese or only Korean, right? For instance, let's say soy sauce.
Yeah.
I would guess a lot of American people associating soy sauce as a Japanese thing.
For sure. Yeah.
But Korean people use soy sauce. They call it kanjang, right? And it's very integrated into our daily lives. So we don't think that's necessarily a Japanese thing. I don't know. I think it's same for, I guess, maybe green tea. Maybe some American people associated that with China or Japan.
Yes.
Koreans have 녹차. We call it 녹차.
Yeah.
We don't, it's so, again, integrated into our daily lives.
Yeah.
It was there for a very long time in Korea too. We don't think it's necessarily a Japanese thing. We just think green tea is green tea.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's similar to that.
I see.
There are a lot of cherry trees aren't specifically only in Japan. So there are a lot of cherry trees in Korea too. We have our own way of calling it, right? I think that makes a very big difference if we have our own way of calling it.
Like a Korean word versus just importing the Japanese word.
Yeah, we never call it sakura.
Sakura, okay.
I mean, maybe like old like 할머니, 할아버지 would call it sakura.
Yeah.
But we call it 벚꽃.
Okay.
So I think that's one of the reasons we don't necessarily associate it with Japan.
Yeah.
Another thing is Korean people have, I guess, a little bit of resistance of calling things Japanese, especially if we had it too.
Yeah. For obvious historic reasons, right?
Yeah.
Colonialism and
so I think most of the part it's because there is a version in Korea too.
Yeah.
Number two, even if it is very Japanese, there's like a little bit of resistance. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what is something that has a Japanese name that you are like very freely, most Koreans associate this with Japan?
In terms of food, maybe wasabi.
Okay, wasabi, yeah.
Yeah.
Koreans don't have wasabi, yeah.
Yeah. Koreans don't have wasabi. Sushi.
You would. Sashimi.
Sushi, there's a word for sushi in Korea, but it's no.
Oh, not
so, okay, sashimi is hue.
Yeah.
Sushi is the type of food where you have the hue over the
for
rice.
Yeah.
We have the word in Korean called chobab.
Oh, okay,
but even if we have the word for chobab, no one would claim that that's a Korean food.
Thing.
They would know that it's a Japanese food. What else is there? I don't know. Tonkatsu. Interesting.
Like I associate that with Japan.
Tonkatsu is special in that there's a Korean style tonkatsu and a Japanese style tonkatsu.
Yeah, the thinner, crispier versus the thicker. Yeah. Okay.
So it's mostly food, I guess, right?
Yeah.
What else is there?
Okay. Bonsais, kimono, dresses. Like those are squarely. Okay.
Oh,
Shoot, maybe
I
not.
don't know about bonsais. See,
Interesting.
I would never think that bonsais are Japanese.
See, that's so crazy to me. Yeah.
There's a word for that in Korean,
Uh,
which is like literally exactly the same word,
Yeah.
like same Chinese character pronounced in Korean,
Yeah.
which is bunje.
yeah.
But I think Korean people would just think that's, I guess, a technique
Yeah.
and not a Japanese thing.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
So again, as an American,
Mhm.
my perception of all these things are, oh, they're Japanese, right?
That's very interesting.
And I think also, of the major East Asian countries, let's say Japan, Korea, China,
Mhm.
Globally until recently,
Mhm.
it was dominated by Japan and China.
Mhm.
And I think Korea is now coming to the forefront more and more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there was very little knowledge and awareness of anything that was Korean,
Mhm.
right? Maybe taekwondo, maybe kimchi,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I think that might be it, honestly,
Yeah,
until
yeah.
most recently, right?
Mhm,
K-pop and K-dramas and things like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, Japan has so many of these associations,
Mm.
right? And yeah.
I think cultures are not specifically only contained within a country.
Mhm.
It's like a regional thing. So
yeah.
I think there are a lot of cultures that East Asian cultures share, and they have like slightly different iterations of them, but mostly the same thing,
Mm.
right? Even for kimchi, there's like there are very similar things in Japan too.
Yeah.
Like kimonos, for instance. I don't know. Maybe this is very controversial. Like if you see the traditional clothing
Yeah.
in all the East Asian countries, you can see like there's a similar taste to it
Yeah.
with a different iteration, right?
Yeah, I'd agree. The material feels like
Yeah.
similar silk, right?
Yeah,
Something silky.
because of the proximity,
Yeah.
they are all influenced by each other.
hmm
But I think for a long time, as you mentioned, like East Asian culture was only there was just perceived as Japanese culture for the Western world, and I think maybe that's why.
How about sake?
Sake. You know what's interesting?
Oh, so that's not a yes. Okay, keep going.
Sake is just a Japanese word for alcohol.
Oh,
And
it's not specifically like rice alcohol or whatever?
I think Japanese people call it nihonshu.
Yeah.
Like
No, yeah, don't know.
Japanese alcohol
Oh.
is what we call sake.
Okay.
But Korea has similar things like that. China too.
Yeah. June, I'm shocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
As an American, like these things are squarely Japanese things.
Mhm.
And again, it's awesome to hear. And, part of me is like quite proud
Mhm.
to hear that as a Korean, like you don't associate those things with Japan.
Mhm.
Yeah, Japan has that, but
Mhm.
Korea has it too.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, like even for sashimi, right?
Yeah.
Korean 회.
It's its own, yeah.
It's its own thing.
Different fish, yeah,
Yeah.
different texture,
Yeah.
different sauce you put in, gochujang, yeah.
초장.
초장,
Yeah.
not gochujang.
초장.
초장, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know the difference.
It's
초장 is gochujang mixed with danjang?
with vinegar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I like Korean hue too, but I do think it's distinct from sashimi,
Mhm.
yeah. Which I would associate with like Japan cuts.
Interesting.
Okay, anyway.
I think Japan did a really good job in that area.
Globalization
Like
of culture.
branding East Asian culture
Yeah,
as
as
Japanese
theirs.
culture. Like I don't want to say that they intentionally did it,
Probably
but
not.
yeah.
Just came that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't note this down, but it's because my list basically stopped about halfway through our trip.
Mhm.
But I did notice one more thing. I saw a lot of people walking around in kimonos.
Oh, that's because it's Kyoto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But even Japanese, I think.
yeah.
Okay. In Korea, I only see foreigners wearing hanboks around in public.
Around the Gyeongbokgung area, they do.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
get free entrance.
Yeah.
But like, on what occasion would you wouldn't be shocked if you saw Koreans wearing hanboks around in public?
I would be very shocked.
You would, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But is there any area or time of the year in Korea where hanboks are more worn?
Acceptable?
Yeah.
Maybe 설날, 추석,
But you don't
only
see
for
anyone wearing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
but only for kids, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
No.
So this gets back to your point, I think. Japan really holds value
Yeah.
in its traditions,
Mhm.
Whereas Korea is the opposite. They just want to like
Yeah.
distance themselves as much from traditions
Yeah.
and just new and modern and move
Mm.
forward.
But you know what? Even when I was growing up,
Mhm.
in 설날 or Chuseok, I could see people wearing hanbok on the streets.
It wasn't that long ago, or
It wasn't that long
yeah,
ago. Yeah. But now it would be kind of, I would think
Chamsudo?
it's interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
and most Koreans would think like, oh, that's like not classy, right?
I,
Or like country-ish.
no, if they wear it in 설날 or Chuseok, I
Yeah.
would understand why they wore it. But I would think, wow, interesting. Like they're really like living up to the spirit. Yeah.
Even weddings today, do Koreans dress up in hanboks?
The parents do.
Okay, that's the only occasion I think I would feel that's natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's crazy. All right. Anything else?
Very polite.
Okay.
Mm.
Polite, I did not think of. Yeah.
High quality service.
Mm-hmm.
Very polite
Mm.
is something that really stands out to me. And I think this is a general understanding of Japanese people. What else is there? Packaging things are amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're next level at packaging.
Mm-hmm. Oh, their skies are clearer.
Oh, better air quality?
Yeah.
Jun, I have more. Man, this episode's getting long. But have you noticed a rise in, I guess, Japanese living in Korea?
Japanese people living in Korea?
Yeah. Have you ran into more yourself or?
No, not at all.
Okay. Growing up in the U.S., until I moved to California, I hardly met any. Now I realized that our kids, again, and they do go to international school, in my second daughter's classroom, out of 20 kids, 5 of them are Japanese.
Oh,
And
wow.
they're all married, half Japanese, half Korean kids.
Interesting.
But they're not here, right, for work or for anything. They're literally just living here. And so, anyway, I've met so many more Japanese people like living in Korea than I did in the US. And honestly, that does surprise me, right? I guess proximity-wise, it makes sense. We're closer. But I always thought Japan and the US had very good relationships, right? Anyway, it was just surprising for me. Yeah. June, there's one more thing I want to bring up. I remember reading this article about, I think it was from Stephen Yuan or someone, but he was talking about the first time that he had met met Koreans living in Japan. And his analogy was actually Koreans living in Japan are treated like Black people living in America. And when I read that, it really hit home for me. Like wow, like it I think helped me understand and feel a lot more, I think, what's the right word? Empathy, at least, for, I think, Blacks living in America, right? And the whole thing was like Koreans are at the bottom. If you're a Korean living in Japan and had been, let's say, like sent there or lived there since colonial times or whatever, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. You're likely poor,
Yeah.
right? Like you're associated with drugs. Like these are the things that Koreans in Japan, anyway, that's their reputation.
Interesting.
And so I don't know if you had heard of that or have thoughts on that, but yeah, it really hit home for me and helped me understand their experience.
Now that you say it is a very somewhat similar situation compared to Black people living in the U.S. because Korean people who were initially living in Japan were basically slaves. Not exactly, but they were there for like labor and all.
And they were kind of forced to move there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the people who are living in modern day Japan, right? They're probably the descendants of those people. And I did hear that there were a lot of discrimination towards them. But I also heard that doesn't exist that much anymore. They're too mixed into society. And also because recently I heard that there's a trend for Korean people, especially the men in Japan. Like they have an affinity for Korean men. And also if you think about the I guess one of the richest people or the most successful people in Japan, the SoftBank guy.
Oh yeah.
He's Korean, right?
I didn't know.
Yeah. I think he's Korean.
Oh wow. Okay.
Or like Japanese Korean. Or Korean Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Korean ethnically, but grows up in Japan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like nth generation.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess there is something rooted there, but I heard that it's very, very doesn't exist anymore. Kind of.
Okay, it's like going away.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Maybe it's a very sensitive thing that I don't know a lot of.
I clearly don't know anything about it either, but
I guess it's more about the language. I heard that if you don't speak the language, you get discriminated against a lot. And if you're like X generation Korean, then your Japanese probably would be
better
perfect.
Than Korean, yeah.
And you don't look different, so how would you be discriminated against? Oh, maybe your name.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, just wanted to see if you had thoughts on that because it was a big revelation for me. All right, Jun. Well, just a long time coming. The Japan episode.
We had to do a Japan episode at some point.
I'm surprised it took us this long, but glad we got to do it after I came back. So, all right. Well,
how are we gonna end this? Sayonara.
Sayonara. So bad. Hope you enjoy the cherry blossoms.
Oh yeah, definitely.
This season, wherever you are in the world, find some cherry blossoms.
You know what I hate about cherry blossoms?
What? What do you hate about cherry blossoms? It can't be anything. They're too beautiful.
I feel a bit of sadness every time I see beautiful cherry blossoms because I know already that it's gonna be gone in like 2 days.
Yeah. But that's what makes them beautiful.
Is that weird?
It's not weird. I think
I feel
normal.
sadness even in their peak beauty. I already am thinking of how it's so temporal.
We're not a philosophy podcast, Jun, but I think that's a very Korean way of thinking.
Is it?
Maybe. You always look for the negative or the sad part of things.
Maybe.
Right?
No, it's because it's so beautiful.
So beautiful. And
then,
so temporary.
And so temporary. Yeah.
But again, I think those are related.
Maybe. Anyways.
All right.
Sayonara.
Bye. First of all, I think they have bigger bloopers. Sponsored by Tokyo Banana.
I think on the surface they can be more welcoming to forests. Foreigner. Foreign tourists.
Forest, yo. 줄임말.
Yeah. Like
꽃볼. Wait, sorry. 불꽃?
벚꽃.
God, so bad. Okay, I'm fine with sayonara.
Okay.
It's so cheesy.
minasan sayonara.
Gomennasai.
Gomennasai?
What other Japanese terms do you know?
You know what gomennasai is?
No.
I think
Sorry?
it's sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sumimasen. Excuse me.
Excuse me.